Hands where I can see them. Step away from the vehicle. NOW! Officer!
Please! That's my car! Please! My registration is inside.
Save it. You can lie downtown.
You have the right to remain silent.
No, please! This isn't right! I didn't do anything!
Stop resisting!
I've never stolen anything in my life. Please, you have to believe me. My heart medicine. It's inside the car.
Not my problem.
This is going viral.
They finally found me. The audio features the low, mournful, and soulful of a single cello.
A pair of handcuffs closes around the trembling wrist of a gray-haired old woman. Click. On her hand, a worn, wide old ring catches the sunlight. A paper bag tears open, and peaches roll across the concrete of a parking lot. A supermarket parking lot in broad daylight. Beside her stands a black Cadillac, polished and gleaming. A police officer presses her against the side of the car.
911 just got a report that this Cadillac was stolen, he says. Step away from the car.
Please, she says, her voice shaking and confused. The papers are right there in the car. A few shoppers stop to look. They whisper. One of them murmurs to the person beside him that she is probably the help, who stole her employer's car keys. Another shakes his head and pulls his child away. Not one of them steps forward. Not one of them knows who she is. They wrench her arms behind her back and cuff them. A 68-year-old woman. She does not scream. She does not curse. She does not cry. She only says, very softly, her voice breaking, that she has lived her whole life and never once stolen anything from anyone.
Then softer still, almost pleading.
Please, there is heart medicine in my car.
Garrett does not even look at her.
If you are innocent, he says coldly, you can say so at the station.
Another officer shuts the door of the Cadillac.
Inside, her bottle of heart pills slides off the seat and drops to the floor of the car. The lock thuds down, cold.
A teenager raises a phone to film it, not to defend her, only out of curiosity. The lens passes over her cuffed hands and the old ring on her finger flashes once.
They walk her to the patrol car. Just before the door closes, Iris does not look at the crowd. She looks somewhere far away, as if seeing straight through all of them. And she says, very softly, almost to herself,
So, they finally found me.
The door of the police car slams shut. Behind it, her cart with its torn bag of peaches sits tipped over beside the locked Cadillac.
They thought they had just caught a car thief, but the truth is, that Cadillac was never the target. The person they truly wanted was the woman sitting in that police car. They thought they had just caught a car thief. They were wrong. And 3 days later, the very people who put those handcuffs on her that morning would wish they had never once touched them. The woman's name was Iris Walker, 68 years old. Every week, she came to this supermarket, and every week she bought exactly one thing, peaches. On her right hand, she always wore an old ring, wide and worn smooth by the years. She had never taken it off, not for a single day. That morning, she had just pushed her cart out to her Cadillac when a police car swung in and cut her off. A young officer stepped out. The name tag on his chest read, Cole. Garrett Cole. 911 just got a report that this Cadillac was stolen, he said. Step away from the car.
This is my car, Iris said, her voice trembling. Please, the papers are right there inside.
Garrett did not check.
A few shoppers stopped to look. There was whispering. One of them said quietly to the person beside him that she was probably the help who had stolen her employer's car keys. Not one of them stepped forward. They wrenched her arms behind her back. The cuffs closed. Click. She did not scream. She did not curse. She did not cry.
I have lived my whole life and never once stolen anything from anyone, she said softly. Then softer still, almost pleading.
Please, there is heart medicine in my car. Garrett glanced at the bottle of pills on the car seat. Only for a second. His hand stopped.
Then he turned away. Another officer shut the door of the Cadillac.
Inside, her bottle of heart pills slid off the seat and dropped to the floor of the car. The lock thudded down, cold.
A teenager raised a phone to film it, not to defend her, only out of curiosity.
The lens passed over her cuffed hands and the old ring on her finger flashed once. They led her toward the patrol car. Just before the door closed, Iris did not look at the crowd. She looked somewhere far away, and she said very softly, almost to herself,
So, they finally found me. Only later would people realize that the call to 911 that morning had been no accident at all. At the police station, they let her make one phone call. Iris dialed a string of numbers, a string she knew by heart. It rang. Once, twice, a third time. Then a cold automated voice came on, saying the person she was calling was not available. Iris stood still, watching the screen of the phone go dark in her hand, and she only said, very quietly, "Too late." Iris's phone lay in a metal evidence tray in a back room of the police station. Its screen lit up once, then went dark. The call log from that morning was still there on the screen. 19 calls, outgoing, all to the same person. Not one of them answered. No one picked that phone up. No one looked at it. The woman who had made those 19 calls was sitting in a holding cell 2 hallways away, and no one knew she was there. Meanwhile, outside, a video had begun to spread. 40 seconds, filmed on a teenager's phone in the parking lot. By noon, 300,000 people had watched it. They watched it for one line. "Please, there is heart medicine in my car," and the sight of the young officer turning away. One comment rose to the top, with more than 50,000 likes. If she is innocent, then that officer belongs in prison. Not far away, in a patrol car parked by the road, Garrett Cole read that exact comment on his own phone. He read it twice. Then he locked the screen and laid the phone face down on his lap. But he did not start the car. He just sat there, staring at the empty air in front of him. And somewhere else in the city, a man took his phone out of his coat pocket. On the screen were 19 missed calls, from someone saved as Mom. He frowned. He had just been through a long morning, he told himself. Later, when things settled down, he would call her back. Then he put the phone in his pocket. And at the West Side Police Station, Officer Clara Evans watched the video on her lunch break. She watched it once. Then she watched it again. 12 years on the job had taught her when an arrest looked right and when it looked wrong. This one looked wrong. She went into the system and typed in the Cadillac's plate. A record came up, but for a different car. She frowned, thinking she must have mistyped. She cleared it and typed again, slowly, one character at a time. This time it was the right car, but the thing she was looking for was not there. She searched for the stolen vehicle report, the excuse they had used to handcuff an old woman that morning. There was none. She filtered by date, then by hour. Still nothing. There was only one call to 911 on record, and the vehicle's registration was clean and valid. Clara leaned back in her chair. This cannot be right, she said quietly to herself. There is not a single stolen vehicle report anywhere. She stood up and walked out to the impound lot in back, to the black Cadillac. Through the locked window, down on the floor by the driver's seat, a small brown bottle of pills still lay where it had fallen. The woman who needed it was still sitting in a cell, over a car that, according to every record, had never gone anywhere at all. Clara walked back inside, sat down at her desk, and pulled the keyboard closer. She was just about to open a complaint form. Her desk phone rang. She picked it up. The file on the Cadillac, a man's voice said. Calm. A stranger's voice. Close it. Clara's hand froze. Why? Who is this? That is not your business, Evans. Then a long dial tone. The line had gone dead. Clara sat still, the receiver still against her ear. The man who had just called had never asked what she was doing. He already knew. That night, the man came home very late. He sat down on the edge of his bed and scrolled through his phone for a while before sleeping, the way he did every night. There was one video that kept coming up again and again on every page he opened. Everyone was sharing it. He was about to scroll past. Then he stopped. On the screen was a supermarket parking lot. A gray-haired old woman, handcuffed, leaning against a black Cadillac. A young officer. A crowd that only stood and watched. Then he heard her voice. Please, there is heart medicine in my car. Something in that voice turned his hands cold. He rewound it. He zoomed in. As they twisted her arms behind her back, the lens passed over her hand, and on one finger, an old, wide ring flashed once. The man stopped breathing. He knew that ring. He had seen it on that hand his entire life. It was his mother. He lowered the phone. His hands were shaking. Then his eyes settled on the notification at the top of the screen. 19 missed calls.
From Mom. All of them from that morning, while he was in meetings. While he told himself later, when things settled down, he would call her back. She had called him 19 times, and he had not answered a single one. He called back immediately. It did not even ring. Only a cold, automated voice came on, saying the person he was calling could not be reached. That same automated voice. The voice his mother had heard, on the other end of a line, at the very moment she needed him most. He called the police station nearest the supermarket in the video. A bored desk officer answered. He asked about a woman named Iris Walker, arrested that morning. A silence. The clatter of a keyboard. Then, the answer. We do not have anyone here by that name, sir. He said he had just watched the video. He spelled out every letter of the name. Another silence. Longer this time. Then the line went dead. The man stood up. He grabbed his coat and his keys. On the screen of the phone lift behind on the bed, the video was still playing. An old woman in handcuffs, an old ring, a voice begging for something no one would give her. His mother was right there in the video the whole city was watching, and yet no one would tell him where she was now. The man drove straight to the police station near the supermarket. He walked in, trying to keep his voice very calm, and said he was looking for his mother, Iris Walker, arrested that morning. The desk officer typed her name into the computer, then typed it again. There is no one named Iris Walker held here, he said. There is no booking record under that name at all. The man said he had just watched the video. An old woman in handcuffs right in front of a Cadillac that morning. The officer looked up. You sure that video was filmed today? The man held out his phone, the video still playing. The officer watched it for a few seconds. Then something in his face changed. He pushed the phone back faster than he needed to. I am sorry, he said, his eyes not daring to lift. I cannot help you with this. Then he turned away, pretending to be busy with the screen in front of him. The man stood there, trying to fit it all together. The call to 911 that morning was still on record. The video was something the whole city was watching. Those two things were still there, but his mother's booking record was not. The name Iris Walker on the list of people in custody simply was not there, as if someone had reached in and pulled out one single thing. The one thing that told you where she was. This cannot just be a mistake, he thought. Then he stopped there. At that same moment, at another station on the west side of the city, Clara Evans took the small slip of paper out of her pocket. The case number she had copied down the night before. She typed it into the system. No matching record found. She typed it again. Same result. The file she had clearly read the night before was gone now. Clara sat still for a long time, looking at the slip of paper in her hand. Then she folded it up and put it away, much more carefully than the last time. The man walked out of the station into a parking lot gone dark. The phone in his pocket buzzed. A message from an unknown number. No name, no greeting. Just one single line. If you still want your mother alive, stop looking. The man stood frozen in the middle of the lot. He had not told a single soul that he was looking for her. And yet someone already knew. The man stood in the middle of the parking lot for a long time, reading that message over and over. If you still want your mother alive, stop looking. An ordinary man, reading that line, would back off. He was not an ordinary man. He got in his car and drove across the city through the night, to a building most people only ever pass by and never walk into. The night shift guard saw him and immediately straightened up. Director Walker, he said, you are here this late. The man nodded and walked past. His name was Marcus Walker, and his job was running the State Bureau of Investigation for the entire state. The woman who that morning had been pulled out of the records, the woman the custody list would no longer admit even existed, was the mother of the very man who oversaw those systems. Marcus could do almost anything. One word from him, and hundreds of people would start searching. He could open any door, call anyone at 3 in the morning, and they would pick up. He sat down behind his desk in the dark office, and for the first time in his entire career, he understood that he could do none of those things. He did not know where his mother was. Even his own systems held no trace of her anymore. And that message still sat there, glowing on the screen. If he came out into the open to look, they could do something to her. And there was one more thing, colder than the other two. Whoever had done this had reached into law enforcement records themselves. That meant they understood his world. If a director of the State Bureau used the whole machine to hunt for his own mother, and it came out, they would call it an abuse of power.
And that, very possibly, was exactly what the other side was waiting for. They had not just taken his mother. They had done it in the exact way that left his two most powerful hands tied behind his back. Marcus sat in the dark for a long time. Then he did something that in 20 years on the job he had never done. He would not open any official investigation. He would not tell a single soul. He would find his mother himself, alone, in the dark, like a man without a single badge to his name. He opened the video on his phone again. He froze it at the one moment they had not been able to erase, because the whole city had seen it. The face of the young officer, turning away. Marcus looked at that face for a long time. Then he thought back to the message. Someone had just threatened the director of the State Bureau of Investigation, lightly, as if threatening a person who was nobody at all. Which meant either they had no idea who he was, or they knew exactly and were not afraid. And Marcus did not know which of the two possibilities chilled him more. Not far away, in a windowless room, Iris Walker sat very straight on a hard chair. This was not an ordinary holding cell. No one came or went. There was no noise. Only a table, a single lamp, and a man sitting on the other side, exactly where the light did not reach. She could see only a shape, and hear only a voice. A very calm, very patient voice. He slid a stack of papers across the table. The third time that day. "You only need to sign here," the voice said, "and then this will all be over." Iris did not look down at the papers. "I will not sign anything," she said. Her chest ached, dull and steady. More than a day had passed since the last time she took her medicine. She knew exactly what that feeling meant, but she did not let it show. She could not see the man's face clearly, so she memorized something else. That voice. The way he spaced out each word, slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. And the fact that he never once said his name. If she ever met him again, she would know that voice. She promised herself that much. That same night across the city, Marcus Walker sat in front of a screen, replaying one video over and over. He had no file, no warrant, not even a team. He had only 40 seconds that the whole city had seen. He looked for the number on the officer's name tag, but the video shook and it was blurry. He went through it frame by frame, zoomed in, pulled back, zoomed in again. It took forever just to make out half the number. That half a number gave him more than a dozen names. He had to filter them down, by patrol district, by age, by face. It was nearly dawn before he stopped on one name. Garrett Cole, a patrol officer, less than 2 years on the job. He pulled up the duty roster for that patrol unit. Garrett Cole's name was there every day. Then it vanished from the list, starting the very morning right after the arrest. Marcus stared at that gap in the roster for a long while. He tracked down where Garrett was living, an old apartment block on the edge of the city. He parked across the street in the dark and watched. Garrett stood on the second-floor balcony, chain-smoking, glancing down at the street every few seconds. He did not look like a man who had won anything. Then he stubbed out his cigarette, went inside, and a moment later appeared at the front door, as if about to go somewhere. Down below, a black car was parked, its engine running. Its headlights flicked on. Once, Garrett froze on the step. He stood there for a second. Then, he turned around and walked back inside. Marcus sat still. Now he understood. The kid was not allowed to go anywhere. He needed to get to Garrett, right now, before he lost the chance. He put his hand on the car door and opened it. At that exact moment, the black car gunned its engine. It pulled away from the curb, slid off, and vanished into the dark at the end of the street. Marcus looked up at the second-floor balcony. Garrett was no longer there. Then the apartment window went dark. He had just found the one single lead in an entire city. And in the very moment it took him to reach for a door handle, they had taken it away. That night, in her apartment, Clara Evans took the small slip of paper out of her pocket. She did not turn on her computer. She did not type the case number anywhere. She just sat there, under the kitchen light, and looked at it. The voice from the phone the other day was still in her head. "That is not your business, Evans." She knew the smart thing to do was to throw the slip away. Forget it. Go to bed. Clara folded it back up, carefully, and put it in her pocket. Again. The next morning, Marcus found Garrett Cole. They had moved him overnight, but a young cop does not have many places to go.
Marcus waited at the corner near his new place, and when Garrett stepped out for his morning coffee, he walked up to him. "The woman in the video," Marcus said, his voice very calm. "The one you arrested. Where is she?" Garrett froze for half a second. Then his face closed. "I do not know what you are talking about," he said. "There was a report of a stolen car. The woman would not cooperate. I followed procedure. I do not know where she is now." "I watched the video," Marcus said. "She told you her heart medicine was in the car, and you turned away." "I did my job," Garrett said. But he did not look Marcus in the eye when he said it. The hand holding his coffee cup trembled a little. Marcus took one step closer. He lowered his voice. "She is my mother." Garrett went rigid. For an instant, something very human crossed his face. Not triumph, something closer to fear and shame. "Then for her sake, and for your own," he said, his voice dropping low, almost pleading, "stop looking. You do not understand what you are getting into." He did not finish the sentence, because his eyes had just slid past Marcus's shoulder and stopped on a point behind him, and all the blood drained from his face. Marcus glanced back, just for a fraction of a second. At the end of the block, a black car was parked. Inside it, a man was looking straight at the two of them. When Marcus turned back, Garrett was a different person. "I already told you I do not know anything," he said, almost shouting, loud and clear, as if for someone far away to hear. "Leave me alone." Then he turned and walked quickly back toward the apartment, without looking back once. Marcus stood still on the sidewalk. They had seen him reach Garrett, and the young officer's last look had not been hatred. It had been terror. Garrett was not protecting himself from Marcus. He was protecting himself from whoever was sitting in that car. And Marcus understood, with a cold feeling, that he had just told those people one thing, that the sun was not going to stop. And somewhere, his mother would be the one to pay for it. In the windowless room, the door opened again. The same man, still sitting where the light did not reach. But this time, there was a trace of impatience in that calm voice. "Your son," he said, "is causing trouble." Something in Iris's chest warmed. So Marcus was looking for her. He had heard her. He had not abandoned her. "You only need to sign," he said, sliding the papers across the table again. "Sign, and this all ends. For you. And for your son, too." Iris looked at the dark shape on the other side of the table. "I already told you," she answered, her voice not shaking at all. "I will not sign." When he was gone, Iris braced a hand on the edge of the table to stand. Her legs were not as steady as the day before. The pain in her chest took longer to fade this time. 2 days now without a single pill. She stood there a moment, waiting for the room to stop swaying. Then she sat back down and quietly waited for her son. At that same time, at the West Side police station, Clara Evans did the thing she had been telling herself for days not to do. She opened the image archive from that morning. The video from the crowd, the whole city had already seen. But the official cameras were the things that would show the whole truth. Who gave the order? Who stood and watched? The officer's body camera. She opened it. Empty. Deleted. The patrol car's dash camera. This one was still there. But right at the end, the part that recorded the handcuffing, it failed. White noise. The supermarket parking lot's security camera. This one had been overwritten on its routine auto-delete cycle. Clara sat staring at the screen. One camera failing is bad luck, but 3 cameras in 3 different places, all gone useless in 3 different ways on the very same morning. Garrett Cole could not have done this alone. She looked at the log of the camera that had been deleted, the line showing when it was wiped. Last night, only a few hours after she heard that a man had gone to see Garrett. Clara sat still for a long time with that number on the screen. Then she stood up to shut down the computer and go home. The screen flashed a small line of text. User access activity has been logged. At that exact moment, at the end of the dark hallway, a door swung open. Then footsteps, coming toward her office. Clara stood still in the middle of the room, her hand still on the light switch. This whole floor was supposed to have only her left on it. The footsteps stopped outside Clara's office. The door opened. It was the night janitor, pushing his cleaning cart. He was a little surprised to see her still there so late. Clara smiled and said she was just about to leave. Out in the parking lot, her heart was still pounding. That just now had been nothing. But the line on the screen was not nothing. Now in the system, There was a trace showing that she had gone looking. Before she started the car, Clara did one thing. She took out paper and pen and copied down by hand everything she had just seen. Then she folded it together with the old slip. If they could erase a whole morning out of the system, then maybe a well-hidden piece of paper was the one thing they could not reach. As for Marcus, every night he parked in the dock, a little way from Garrett's apartment block, and waited. On the third night, a figure slipped out the back of the building, avoiding the black car still parked out front, and crossed the street toward his car. It was Garrett. He opened the door and sank into the seat. He looked like he had not slept in days. "I do not know where she is," Garrett said right away, his voice breaking. "You have to believe me. I swear I do not know." Then, bit by bit, he talked. He was only a rookie. That morning, his superior told him there was a report of a stolen car, told him to make the stop, arrest that woman, bring her in quietly. Said it had all been handled from above. He just followed orders. He did not ask anything. Then she vanished from the system. Then the video spread everywhere. Then men he had never seen began sitting outside his door. "That was when I understood," Garrett said. "They did not need a cop. They needed a face, someone to blame later if it ever came out. And I handed them mine." He put his hands over his face. "She asked me to get her pills for her. I heard her clearly, and I turned away. I have not slept these past nights. I keep hearing that one line over and over." Marcus sat still. The whole city hated turned out to be just a pawn, sacrificed by someone else. "You do not know who gave the order?" Marcus asked. Garrett shook his head. "I am just the one at the very bottom. But I know the kind of people they are. They do not leave loose ends. She knows something they are very afraid of. And once they no longer need her..." He did not need to finish. "If she is still alive," Garrett said softly, "then there is not much time left." Then he reached for the car door. "I should not have come here. If they find out I talked to you..." At that exact moment, the phone in Garrett's pocket buzzed. He took it out, looked at the screen, and all the blood drained from his face. Garrett looked at the phone screen, then at Marcus. "They know," he said. "They know I went out." On the screen were just 3 words. "Where are you?" Garrett all but fell out of the car, then ran back toward the building, back to the very place he had risked everything to slip out of. A moment later, the second-floor apartment light came on. As if he had never gone anywhere, Marcus sat alone. The path through Garrett had just closed. He had to find another way. And he came back to a question he had been avoiding these past days. What kind of life his mother had actually lived in the years he did not answer his phone. He barely knew anything. He knew she bought peaches every week. He knew she kept his father's car. That was all. He began to dig. And the woman who emerged was not a quiet widow. Her name was in one neighborhood meeting after another. She signed petitions. She stood up and spoke time after time against a huge project that was about to swallow her old neighborhood whole. There were many people in those pages, dozens of resident names, several groups, a real estate development company with a whole list of backers behind it. But there was one name that kept coming up, again and again. On the project sign, in the press releases, at the top of that list. Marcus typed that name into the search box. Richard Holloway. A news clip came up. Holloway, cutting a ribbon at an opening ceremony. To his left, the governor was shaking his hand. To his right, the police chief was smiling. Behind him, businessmen, officials, faces the whole city knew, all of them standing around him, all of them smiling. Marcus watched the whole clip. He said nothing. Not far away, in the windowless room, Iris sat with her back against the wall. She could no longer sit up straight the way she had a few days before. Every breath now pulled a stab of pain through her. She looked down at the old ring on her finger. She said nothing. She did not cry. She just looked at it. For a long time. Then she lifted her eyes to the closed door. And went on waiting. In his car, Marcus now had a name to follow. For the first time, he had a direction. But it was only a direction, not a shred of evidence. And standing behind that one name were far too many other names. He could not yet know whether the one who truly gave the order was Holloway, or one of the people standing and smiling around him. He reached out to turn off the screen. At that exact moment, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Not a single word of threat. Not a single word at all. Only a link. Marcus opened it. A video.
Blurry, dark, a windowless room, and in it, sitting, was his mother. She was alive. 2 seconds. Then the video vanished. The link went dead. The screen was blank, as if it had never existed.
Marcus sat frozen, staring into the patch of darkness where his mother's face had been 1 second before.
Those 2 seconds of video kept replaying in Marcus's head all night.
His mother, leaning against a wall, in a room he had no way of finding.
They had not sent it to scare him. They had sent it to show him that they had her, that they were watching him, and that she was still alive, at least for now. He could not wait any longer, and he could not do this alone. The next morning, Marcus did not go to Garrett's apartment. He knew that place was watched. He waited until Garrett went down to the parking garage, a corner with no camera, no one watching, and cornered him there.
"I cannot talk to you," Garrett said right away, his eyes darting around. "They are always watching."
"I have seen my mother," Marcus said.
Garrett froze.
"They sent me 2 seconds. She was sitting against a wall in a windowless room.
She could barely lift her head. 5 days now without her heart medicine, and the people holding her wanted me to see that." Garrett stood still for a long time. Then he brought a hand up to rub his face, and when he lowered it, something in him had broken.
He knew exactly what these people did to anyone who dared to speak. He had seen it.
But the face of that woman in the dark room, together with the plea for her pills that he heard over and over every night, weighed more than his fear.
"I will help you," Garrett said, his voice shaking but not taking it back.
"I do not know how much I can help, but I will do it."
Then he told Marcus the thing that had been gnawing at him since the first day. The order to arrest her that morning did not come through the normal channel. My superior did not think it up himself. He got that order from higher up. Much higher. So high that an order like that should never have been able to reach down to a small station like mine.
"Who?" Marcus asked.
"I do not know the name," Garrett said. "I only know it came from inside, from high up in the department." Marcus stood still in that cold parking garage. He had thought the one behind it was an outsider, a businessman, a name he could trace from outside the system. But if Garrett was right, then the one who could erase records, erase cameras, reach into any station in the state, and was now holding his mother, did not stand outside his world.
He stood inside it. The same world Marcus ran.
Perhaps someone he passed in the hallway every day, and he had no way of knowing who. It had been a long time since Marcus stood at the door of his mother's house. He let himself in with the spare key she always hid under the flower pot, in the same old spot, all these years. Inside, everything was still her life. Her reading glasses folded on the table, a basket of peaches starting to wither. In the garage, his father's car sat under a thin layer of dust. Marcus stood in the middle of the house he had not entered in years, and for the first time he felt clearly the life his mother had lived alone in here. Then he noticed something else.
Someone had been here before him. The drawers were not quite shut. Stacks of papers had been shifted, not the way a burglar ransacks a place, but neat, professional, as if someone had been looking for one very specific thing.
Marcus began to look for that same thing, and in his father's old study, piece by piece, he put together who his mother truly was. His mother was not just a resident who went to neighborhood meetings. She was one of the few people elected to the city's Planning Oversight Board. And on the huge project about to swallow her neighborhood whole, her vote was the deciding vote. And his father, when he was alive, had once been the accountant for that very project. Before he died, he had left her something, a file, numbers, streams of money that should not exist, flowing out of the project into the pocket of someone sitting very high up. Marcus did not have the file in hand. The one who came before him had been looking for it too, but they left empty-handed. His mother had hidden it somewhere no one could find. And then it all came together, chilling. They had never cared about the Cadillac at all. They needed her silent, because in just a few more days, at that meeting, this woman would both cast the vote that killed their project and lay her husband's file on the table. One vote and one stack of paper, enough to put many people in prison. They could not buy her, could not frighten her. So they chose the only option left. Make her vanish until the meeting had passed. Marcus found the meeting notice in her pile of mail. The meeting was in 2 days. He stood there in the silent house and fit the last piece into place.
the piece that made his heart clench. She had fought this alone, for months, keeping her dead husband's file, and she had called him 19 times, perhaps not just to say hello, but because she was afraid, and she needed her son, and he had not answered. Now he understood it all. He knew why they had taken her. He knew the one thing that could save her and bring them down. Only that file was in the one place that only his mother knew. And his mother was dying in a room he could not find. And he had only 2 days. In the windowless room, Iris had stopped trying to sit up. She lay on her side on the long bench, one hand gripping the ring on the other. Her breathing was shallow and far apart now. The papers still lay on the table, still without her signature. She had decided. She would not sign, even if it was the last thing she ever did. Marcus had less than 2 days, and he could not do all of it himself. Garrett had given him a name. There was a woman officer at the West Side Station, Clara Evans, who had pulled the camera footage to look at it and been flagged by the system. Either she was one of them, or she was trapped, exactly like Garrett. Marcus took the risk and went to Clara. She was wary, almost sent him away, until Marcus told her who he was, not just the son of the woman in the video, but the director of the State Bureau of Investigation. Clara looked at him and understood something that chilled her. If even the head of the Bureau did not dare come out into the open and use his own power, then how enormous must the thing they were up against be? The two lone people sat down and fit their pieces together. She had 3 cameras gone useless in 3 ways: the deleted booking record, the pages she had copied by hand. He had the vote, his father's file, the meeting in 2 days. When it all came together, the picture that emerged was chillingly clear. They knew what had happened. They knew why. But they did not have a single scrap of paper that pointed straight at one specific person. Everyone who had truly given the orders still stood behind a smooth, blank wall. Then Clara mentioned the one thing that had never been erased: the 911 call. They had kept it because it pointed outward, toward a good citizen reporting a crime. But a call always comes from a person. They traced the number back, and it led to a name, a neighbor who lived on the same street as Iris, Sylvia. Marcus and Clara went to Sylvia's house that very night. They found her stuffing things into a suitcase, both hands trembling. She was about to run. "I did not know," she stammered when she saw them. "I did not know it would turn out like this." Bit by bit, she talked. A man had paid her, told her exactly what to say, word for word, when she called 911. She thought it was just some petty dispute. He did not look like a thug, she said. He did not bother to hide anything. He walked in as if he had every right to, like someone from the government. And this morning, he had come back, told her to disappear, said it was almost over. Clara was about to ask who he was, but right then, outside the window, a beam of headlights swept across the wall. A car had just pulled up to the curb, right in front of Sylvia's house, and all the blood drained from her face. Marcus reacted before he could think. He pulled Sylvia away from the suitcase, pushed both her and Clara toward the back door, while a knock came at the front. Steady, unhurried, the kind of knock from people who know for certain they do not need to hurry. The 3 of them slipped through the fence behind the house, crossed 2 dark yards, then crouched low in Marcus's car at the end of the street. A moment later, the lights in Sylvia's house came on. 2 figures moved around inside, unhurried, as if searching for something. Or someone. Sylvia sat curled up on the back seat, shaking hard. "They came to silence me," she whispered, "as if I had never existed." That very line chilled both Marcus and Clara, because it was exactly what they had done to Iris. When the car had driven far enough away, Sylvia took out her phone, both hands still shaking. "I was scared from the start," she said. "So the day he came to bring the money, as he was turning away, I took a picture. On the screen was a hurried photo. Blurry, but one thing was clear: the license plate on the back of the car he drove." Clara took the phone, looking at the photo for a long time. Back at their hiding place, Clara set to the thing she did best. She ran that plate. Then she set it beside the thing she had been keeping for days, the log of who had accessed the system to erase the records, erase the cameras. The plate did not belong to an ordinary citizen. It belonged
to a government vehicle, and the access that had wiped away every trace of Iris, when Clara traced it back to its route, did not originate from any station at all. It came from the very top, from an office so high that very few people in the entire department could ever reach it.
Clara looked up at Marcus. For the first time, they no longer had only a picture. They had a printed stack of paper, clear in black and white, proving this whole thing had been run from the inside, from very high up.
"Here it is,"
Clara said quietly.
"Here is the evidence."
Marcus looked at the office named on that page. He knew that place. He had walked through its door. He had shaken the hands of the people who sat behind it. The one holding his mother was not some stranger out there somewhere. He was right inside Marcus's own building.
Clara looked at the stack of paper, then at him, and asked the question they both feared.
Who do we bring this to now, when the person we need to accuse sits higher than almost everyone we could trust? And the meeting was tomorrow morning. The office on that page belonged to one person, a person Marcus knew well. Deputy Director Reed, his own deputy. The man whose office sat a few doors down from his. The man who had shaken his hand, nodded to him in the hallway every day for years. Reed could not hand this off to anyone else, Clara said quietly, because that file names him. The plate Sylvia had photographed led back to a vehicle from Reed's office, and that vehicle, over the past few days, had made the same trip over and over to an old shuttered building on the edge of town. Marcus, Clara, and Garrett went there before dawn. Garrett went first, still in his uniform, telling the guard at the door there was an order to transfer a prisoner. Just one sentence, but enough to get them through the first door. Marcus's heart pounded the whole length of the long hallway. Then he pushed open the last door. His mother was lying there, in the windowless room he had seen in those 2 seconds of video. She was gaunt. Her lips were pale. But when she heard the door, she slowly lifted her head. Marcus knelt down beside her. "I am here, Mom. I came." Iris looked at her son's face for a long time, as if to make sure he was real. Then her thin hand, the hand with the old ring, rose to touch his cheek.
"I called you,"
she said, her voice no more than a breath.
19 times.
"Mom, I am sorry. I did not answer. But I am here now. This time, I am not too late." He helped her sit up and showed her a picture of Reed's face. Iris looked at it. She had never clearly seen the face of the man in the dark, but that voice, the voice that had pressed her to sign, time after time, she would never forget.
"It is him,"
she said. "That voice, it is him." Then she took her son's hand.
"Your father's file," she whispered. "It is not in the house. They will never tear apart the old winter coat of a dead man. It is in the lining, in the hall closet."
Later, when Clara opened that file, everything showed plainly in black and white. Streams of money flowing from Richard Holloway's project, straight into the pocket of Deputy Director Reed. One man built it. One man cleared the way for it. And to keep it hidden, the two of them had been willing to let a 68-year-old woman die slowly in a dark room. Now Marcus had it all. His mother alive, the name of the mastermind, and the file that proved it. He looked at his watch. The board meeting was in 4 hours. Iris followed her son's eyes. And though her lips were pale, though her hands still shook, she forced herself to sit up straight.
"Take me there,"
she said. "They thought they had made me disappear. I want to see their faces when they realize they did not." The board meeting room that morning was packed. Richard Holloway sat in the front row, his suit crisp, his smile calm. The seat of the member with the deciding vote sat empty. The chairman was preparing to call the vote to begin. Everything for Holloway was going exactly as planned. Then the door at the back of the room opened. Iris Walker walked in. She leaned on her son's arm, one step at a time, slowly. Her body was gaunt after the days in the dark, but her back was straight, and she walked straight to that empty seat, her seat, and sat down. The whole room went silent. The smile on Holloway's face froze. When her turn came, Iris laid both hands on the table, the old ring on her finger, and said in a hoarse but clear voice that she voted against the project. The deciding vote, the project Holloway had poured his whole fortune and his whole soul into, died right there on the meeting table. But Iris did not stand up yet. The man with her stepped forward. He introduced himself, Marcus Walker, Director of the State Bureau of Investigation. A murmur spread through the room.
All these days, the people behind this had thought he was just a troublesome son. They had never bothered to ask what he did for a living. Marcus laid his father's file on the table. Then he spoke, for the whole room to hear. One thing at a time. A false 911 call. A woman handcuffed over her own car. An erased record. 3 cameras made useless. And a mother left to die slowly in a dark room, only because she held these numbers in her hands. He held up the file. Streams of money flowing from Richard Holloway's project, straight into the pocket of his own deputy. Deputy Director Reed. One man built it. One man cleared the way for it. The powerful faces that had once stood smiling around Holloway now turned away all at once, edging away from him, as if from something on fire. Reed was led out of the building that very morning. The handcuffs closed around his wrists. The very thing he had ordered closed around the wrists of a 68-year-old widow in a supermarket parking lot. Holloway faced a list of charges so long that none of his lawyers could untangle it. They had tried to make Iris Walker vanish from every record in the state, and yet in the end, she was the woman standing in the middle of the most crowded room in the city, looking straight into their faces as their whole world came crashing down. In the middle of the commotion, Marcus knelt by his mother's chair. "It is done, Mum. It is over." Iris did not look at Holloway, did not look at the handcuffs. She only looked at her son, raised her ringed hand, and patted his hand gently. But there were still other people who needed to face her. Not the powerful ones, the ordinary people, the ones who had stood and watched that day in the parking lot. And that was an entirely different story. The 40-second video was now watched again across the whole country, but with different eyes. The woman that millions had scrolled past and assumed was a car thief now had a name, a story. A dead husband, a son, a vote, and a dark room. And then the apologies began to pour in. Letters arrived at her house. People waited outside her gate. Among them was a man Iris recognized at once. The very man who, that morning, had let slip the line that she was probably the help who stole her employer's car keys. He stood there, turning his hat over in his hands, not daring to look straight at her. "I am sorry," he said. "At the time I saw one thing, and I thought I understood it all. I was wrong." Iris looked at him for a long while. She could have been angry. No one would have blamed her if she were, but she only nodded.
I accept your apology,
she said, because Iris knew well that anger at this man was not something she wanted to carry for the rest of her life. The person she truly wanted to find was someone else. Marcus found her, a young girl who had also been in the parking lot that morning. When everyone else turned away, she was the only one who took out her phone, not to join in, but because she saw that something was wrong and she would not look the other way. It was her video that had traveled across the city. It was her video that had caught Marcus's eye. It was her video, with that moment the ring flashed, that had told his son the handcuffed woman was his mother. When she met Iris, the girl said awkwardly that she was sorry, that she should have done more than just stand and film. Iris took her hand. "You did the thing that a whole parking lot full of people did not," she said. "You did not look away." Then she went on, softly, as if to herself. "There were so many people there that day. I do not remember the cruel words. People are often cruel with their mouths. What I remember is how many people stood there, saw everything, and not one said a single word. If everyone that day had stayed silent like all the rest, I would not be sitting here now." The girl burst into tears. Iris only held her hand. That evening, sitting in her house, Iris looked out the window for a long time. Then she turned to her son.
There is a place I want to go back to,
she said.
That parking lot.
I left something there. A few days later, once she was a little steadier on her feet, Iris asked her son to drive her there. The same supermarket parking lot. The same morning sunlight. The very place where a widow had once been handcuffed and pushed into the back of a police car while a crowd stood and watched. This time, Iris stepped out of the car, slowly, and no one looked at her at all. She was just an older woman doing her morning shopping. And that, strangely enough, was exactly what she wanted most. She walked straight inside, to the fruit stand, and chose peaches. She picked them one by one, carefully, the way she always had. Marcus watched his mother, and at last he asked the thing he had never asked in all these years. "Why is it always peaches, Mum?" Iris smiled. "They were your father's favorite," she said. Every week he bought a basket. After he passed, I kept buying them. I figured as long as I keep buying peaches, there is still one small corner of the week that belongs to him. Marcus was silent. He thought back to that morning, the image of peaches rolling all across the asphalt, under the feet of the crowd. It turned out that what they had spilled that day was not just a basket of fruit. It was the last way this woman still had to love a man who was gone. "This is what you left behind," she had said. Now he understood. He took the basket of peaches from his mother's hands, and the two of them walked to the checkout together. A son, carrying his mother's groceries on an ordinary morning. The simple thing he had missed all these years because he was too busy, because he did not answer his phone. This time, he did not miss it. Out at the car, Iris stopped, looking toward the corner of the lot where it had all begun. She did not feel afraid. She only felt at peace. Then she said softly,
About that young officer.
Marcus turned to look at his mother, the one who turned away. Iris went on.
I want to see him again. I think he is carrying something very heavy too, and I do not want him to carry it alone for the rest of his life.
Garrett Cole came to see her late one afternoon. He had confessed everything. He had stood and testified, recounting every detail, even knowing that his testimony also incriminated him. He would have to face his own consequences. The morning he handcuffed an old woman in a parking lot, he would never be able to erase. He stood at Iris's door, wringing his hands, not daring to step inside. "I do not expect you to forgive me," he said. "I came only to say I am sorry, and to say that I know an apology is not enough." Iris invited him in and poured him a cup of tea. He sat there, and then the thing that had weighed on him for so long came pouring out. "She asked me to get her heart pills," he said, his voice breaking. "I heard her, and I still turned away. I keep hearing that moment every night. I do not know how to keep living with it." Iris let him say it all. Then she set down her own cup of tea. "You turned away," she said. "Yes. I will not pretend that did not hurt me." Garrett hung his head. "But then you turned back," Iris went on. "You slipped out of their cage in the night. You sat in my son's car and told the truth, knowing it could cost you everything. You stood before the court and spoke, while men 100 times more powerful than you chose silence." The girl who filmed it that day did not look away. And in the end, neither did you. I have lived a long enough life to understand one thing, Garrett. Most people, once they have turned away, turn away forever. They never come back. But you did. Garrett looked up at her, his eyes red. "I am not telling you to forget that morning," Iris said. "You will carry it. But I do not want you to carry it alone, as if you were only the worst person on the worst day of your life. Because you are not only that." For the first time since that morning, Garrett cried. Not out of fear, but because something was finally set down. When he left, Iris stood at the door watching him for a long time. Marcus came to her side. "Why did you do that?" he asked. "After everything he did to you." Iris looked out at the street. Then she began to tell her son the thing this whole story, from the very beginning, had always been about. A Sunday morning, a few months later, in Iris's kitchen, a basket of peaches sat on the table. The old ring was still on her finger. Out front, a car was parked right by the door, her son's car. Her phone rang. This time, someone picked up on the very first ring. Marcus came by every week now. The 19 missed calls from that day he could never get back. But the calls from here on, he would not. He carried a fresh basket of peaches in and set it on the kitchen table. Iris looked up at her son and smiled. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Nothing needed saying. The afternoon Garrett left, Marcus had asked his mother why she did that, after everything that had happened. Iris was silent for a long while. Then she told her son this. "Evil rarely wins because it is strong, son. It wins because too many good people choose to stay silent. But sometimes, all it takes is one person who dares to speak up to turn everything around." Think back to that morning where it all began. A woman in handcuffs, a bottle of pills left behind, a whole parking lot full of people standing and watching. The ones behind it had money, had power, and could erase a person's name from every record. But what brought them down in the end was only a girl who would not put her phone down, a young officer who finally dared to turn back, and an old woman who refused to sign her name. One day, you too will stand in a parking lot of your own, You will see something wrong happening to someone you do not even know, and you will have to choose. So I want to ask you this. That morning, if you had been standing in that parking lot, would you have been the one who turned away or the one who dared to speak up? Leave your answer in the comments. If you want to hear more stories like this, tap follow. And if today's story made you stop and think for even a moment, send it to someone you believe needs to hear it. There are people the whole world only glances past, and there are stories that need only one person willing to stop and listen. I will see you in the next story.